Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. Now, we're not going live right after a game, but we do have games upcoming for the Phoenix Suns as they're getting ready to play the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals. Yeah, they beat the Lakers, and everybody's talking about how great that feels. I know that everybody who is involved in the Suns organization is ecstatic that we beat the Lakers, but that's in the past now. It's time to look forward. We have to play the Denver Nuggets. We're going to play, again, with home court advantage. It's going to be really big for the Phoenix Suns. So the Suns Jam Session podcast thought we'd get together and we talk about that upcoming series. So Matthew, welcoming you to the pod. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, man. I got the extra large jerseys behind me stretched out so everyone can see how big I am. So
I love them.
I'm ready to go.
You got the Sarge and the Stephon Marbury jersey.
Yeah, switch it up just a little bit. So
I like it. So everything going good on this Saturday? You ready to talk some Suns basketball?
No, I'm anytime, man. I mean, it's been one day. We got to jump back on the mics, so I'm ready for this one. It's
really weird going live and it's not a game. I think that's
something
a
weird.
little bit.
I'm not prepared.
I'm not at all. Like Denver Nuggets, I'm still riding that euphoria of beating the Los Angeles Lakers, and I think I will for the rest of the day. And then tomorrow, I'm really going to lock down and start focusing on the Denver Nuggets. But I thought it'd be a good idea for us to get together, and not just we thought it'd be a good idea to get together and just focus on that opponent. If you're listening on the Bright Side of the Sun podcast network, you'll get this podcast on Sunday as part of your preparation for this series. If you're joining us live on the show currently, we appreciate it. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Suns Jam. You can listen to the Bright Side of the Sun podcast network on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where you listen to this. Make sure you subscribe and give us a thumbs up and give us a 5-star review if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. And if you do that, we'll read it live right here on the show. Be fantastic. And remember to subscribe wherever you are listening. And if you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, smash it. Let everyone know where the best Phoenix Suns content is right here on the Suns Jam Session. So we're going to welcome a special guest on the other side. But first, it's time to crack open a beer, Matthew.
You got one?
Yep. Thanks to our friends again at Four Peaks. We got the Joy Bus Wow Wheat. I'm just in love with this beer. It's like a Blue Moon, but a little sweeter. So you actually don't need the orange in it. So it's just a fantastic beer.
Very cool. Sounds tasty.
What are you drinking? Ice cold water?
I got water, dude. I got to hit the gym after this,
Nice. Got to get skull. I need to drink less of these. I'm getting fatter and fatter during these playoffs. But you know what? That's just what happens.
You got to do it, dude. For the pod.
I do it for the pod. So cheers, Suns fans. Let's talk about this upcoming series. Oh, yeah. Against the Denver Nuggets. Actually kind of weird to play that music. For the past 6 podcasts, we've had the Beat LA chant going, but that's in the past. It's time now to focus on the Denver Nuggets who are upcoming, and I thought that it'd be a great idea to bring in a guy that everybody knows from the Suns post-game shows and the Belief podcast network and like 30 other places. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Flex from Jersey. Flex, how you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. Happy to be back on with y'all, man. I always enjoy it, man. This is one of my favorite things to do, to jump on with y'all, man. But I'm totally locked in, baby. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about some Suns Nuggets.
Let's do it.
Yes, sir. So, as we prepare for this series, we're going against the Nuggets. It's a team that, if we look at kind of who they are overall, their record this season was 47-25. So third best in the NBA West. And only 4 games behind the Suns. Points per game, they're 8th in the league with 115.1. And opposing points per game, they're at 110.1, again, 8th in the league. Their pace, which I think is going to be very important in this series, is 27th of 30 in the league. Offensive rating, 7th best in the league at 117.1. Defensive rating, 112.1. That's 12th best in the league. So their net rating of +5 is 6th best in the league. So as I give you those statistics, kind of looking at the Denver Nuggets, I'll start with you, Matthew. What is the one key to this series that you think will allow the Suns to come out victorious?
It's so tough right now, man. It's really tough. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've been watching a whole lot of the Nuggets during the season. The season was so compact, right? I mean, we're doing the podcast after every game. Suns played like every other night. It's hard to really keep up. I mean, you do your best with this team. Of course, Jokic, the adjustments and what the factors to all of this. It's not the Lakers defense. So that's great. That's number one. That it's so nice to not be having to play the Lakers defense. It's not like the Denver Nuggets are so terrible, but the perimeter defense is going to be as bad. Playing this Denver Nuggets team, we can actually get that 3-point percentage. I think raised up a little bit going into the series. So that's one thing, because I think when we look back at the Lakers series, I was like, when's this 3-point game going to come? And it came in game 6. It came in perfect timing, right? But I feel like the Suns can really up that percentage in these games. That's really going to help them kind of get a comfortable lead here and there. I'm not saying the Nuggets we're just going to roll them over at all. Jokic, of course, is going to be the MVP, but it's a different kind of MVP in the center there. It's not LeBron James. It's not a guy where I just fear so much, which I'm probably going to eat these words, of course. But Jokic is going to put up the stats. He's going to tear us apart. But the guys that are going to contribute around him a little bit better than maybe what the Lakers have, just because Anthony Davis was out last series. But it's just, he's not that guy yet, right? Jokic, you don't look at him, you're not just like, oh my God, like I'm scared of this guy. He's a sun in the middle of all these players. Everyone's orbiting around him. He is going to be that guy soon after winning the MVP. But right now, going to the series, it seems like the Suns just have the upper hand everywhere on the court, besides maybe Jokic.
What do you think, Flex?
Man, listen. So here's the thing, guys. I actually have a habit of doing this. I record every playoff game from every team. So I've actually watched all of Portland, Denver.
I'm so glad we had you on then. This is fantastic.
Yeah. I watch all of Portland, Denver. Actually, I was up to about 3 a.m. watching Game 6 for a second time, just going through the motions and just looking at things. And I'm going to be very, very frank here, man. The first thing you put the stats up were their pace. Mm-hmm. Well, no one plays that pace better than the Phoenix Suns. So this is what the Suns want. You want to play that pace with the Suns. This is right in our backyard. This is what we like to do. To me, the key to this series is pretty simple. What Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Torrey Craig, and Cam Johnson can do to Michael Porter Jr. That's the series. Mm-hmm. In a nutshell, in my opinion. We all know that DeAndre Ayton is a favorable matchup with Jokic. Jokic is going to do Jokic things, but DeAndre also averages 24 and 14 for his career against the Joker. So you don't got to win that battle. You just got to keep it respectable. And I think DA has all the intangibles. I think I just read a quote with Joker said that DA is one of the guys he respects the most in the league and gives him a hard time. So I think that kind of, I don't know if it's a cross cancel, but it's a close enough battle that as long as DA stays out of foul trouble, we should be okay there. And then I just look at the backcourt, man. I'm sorry to be so frank. I normally don't like doing this, man, but Campazzo and Austin Rivers are not going to handle Devin Booker and Chris Paul. I'm telling you, it's so. I actually, looking at the tape and watching Denver and breaking them down, I got a lot of love and respect for Michael Malone. That's a very good basketball team. They're tough basketball teams, and they're seasoned. This is a team that was down 3-1 back-to-back last year and found a way to the Western Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a narrative that people have to pay attention to. They're a team that's seasoned and a team that's used to playing with their back against the wall. So if Phoenix goes up 3-1, this isn't one of those situations where you just wrap it up, right? You say, hey, this team has been here before. But the obvious thing also is, has this team been here before? I mean, that team had Jamal Murray. This team doesn't have Jamal Murray. So I just like the matchups. I like the way the Suns match up against them. I like the way the Suns are playing right now. And I think it's just hard to bet against the Suns right now after you just put the GOAT to sleep and went through that whole LA thing, man. I think it's a favorable matchup for Phoenix. I know we'll get into predictions later, but I like our chances a lot in this series, man.
I'm scared.
Okay.
And what I'm scared of is how confident I am. I mean, that's, I was saying it after the post game the other night after we shut out the Lakers, when we were sitting around kind of having a round table briefly talking about the Denver Nuggets. And I really do. I agree with you, Flex and Matthew. I like the way that we match up against this team. And I like the way that we match up with pretty much every other team left in the Western Conference outside of the Clippers, who, we still don't know if they're going to even make it to the next round. They've got a game 7 coming up against the Dallas Mavericks, but every other team, I like how we match up. The one team that scared me coming into the playoffs because of their size and the depth of their size was the Los Angeles Lakers, and we banished them. The Suns can beat you in so many different ways. And, referencing the pace, that's right where they want to live. Again, the Denver Nuggets are 27th in the league when it comes to pace. The Suns are 26th. I mean, that's the game that we play. There's a certain rhythm to it. Now, granted, you're playing against Nikola Jokic. You're playing against the MVP, who is the master of that pace and picking apart defenses. But if you look at them in the Portland series, that was a team that had one of the worst defenses in the league. So he was allowed to try to pick them apart. His the ways that they tried to neutralize him, they essentially took away the passing from him. I mean, that was kind of their approach. They were going to play, they didn't throw as many doubles at him as from what I saw. Again, I didn't watch nearly as much as Flex did, but they didn't double him as much as typical teams do. They forced him to try to make the shots, and the Joker abided. That's what he did. So as I look at this series, if I was to pick the one key, I agree. I think it's how we can manage Michael Porter Jr. because he is their second best player now. With Jamal Murray out, you look at how they formed in the Western Conference first round against the Portland Trail Blazers, and they're led by Jokic, but their second highest scorer with 18.8 points per game was Michael Porter. And the reason for that is because of all the Blazers don't have the wing depth to attack him. I mean, yeah, they have a little bit of Norman Powell, a little bit of Robert Covington, guys who are kind of designed, but they were, sometimes getting matched up on Jokic because Jurkic. I always try to go with his first name.
Nurkic, yeah.
Nurkic,
it's hard.
Yeah, it's like Yusef Nurkic. He was in foul trouble a lot in this series, because of Jokic. So obviously, I think DA is going to be a big factor. We got to keep him in the games and playing. He showed us in the in a series where he should have been in foul trouble plenty against the Lakers. He wasn't. Know that Jokic is going to try to bait him, and he does a lot of the guard stuff. He does a lot of the head bobs, the screams. He leads with his off arm a lot into the opposition, pushes off, and then says it's a foul on them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a couple of those games where DeAndre Ayton's in foul trouble. So there's kind of that aspect of the series, which I think is going to be vital. And then obviously, again, as you mentioned, like what Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson, Torrey Craig can do on Michael Porter Jr. Don't let him go crazy from three, but force him to take those 3-pointers, defended threes down there, get those rebounds. I mean, that's going to be vital in the series.
Can I follow up on something you just said, John?
Go for it.
If you don't mind, brother. So, a blessing in disguise, and you just said something, it just rang a bell. I'm watching this Portland Denver series, and I'm obviously matching it up. I'm watching the series, but I'm looking at, okay, if Denver wins, if Portland wins, right? And I look at this and I say, man, how much of a blessing is it that DeAndre was able to go against 3 different types of bigs in this last series? Anthony Davis is very much like Jokic in the sense that he does a lot of pump fakes. He can get you off the dribble. He's very crafty. He'll go inside. He'll back to the basket. He'll face you up. So if it's like boxing, right? When you're going to have a big boxing match, you find someone to spar with that is similar to the guy you're about to fight. Well, DeAndre just got a sparring session with Anthony Davis, albeit for not as many games as we like, but he still got a taste of him. And then you switched it up with Gasol, who wants to stretch you, and you switch it up with a bully guy in Drummond. So he's had a taste of every type of thing you can throw at him, and Jokic does all that in one. So it was like the perfect dynamic for DA. And I'm going to say the same thing I said in the Lakers series. You don't go into this series trying to beat Nikola Jokic. You just don't. You give him his 35. You let him be the MVP, and you figure out where the other 70 points are coming from. And if you play that basketball game, there's no team left in the playoffs that can play at 100 points. I call that mud. There's no one in the playoffs that can play in mud better than the Phoenix Suns. And there's a reason why when you looked at the Portland-Denver series, every game was 115, 120, 125, 120, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you look at the Suns games, and they're 100 to 90. It's a different type of basketball game. And if they invite themselves into the Phoenix Suns fight, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. There's no team that does it better than the Suns. So I like what we're doing here.
Yeah, you're right, dude. If you're gonna go at Jokic, you can't. These superstars in the NBA, they're gonna get their stats, right? It's just about the guys around that, how you protect them. Michael Porter Jr., perfect example. He's a guy now who's getting his chance, right? He's someone that we talked about earlier this season, maybe being a trade asset, someone that, he wanted his own spotlight. He wanted to be the reason that team's winning. He wanted that right away. The first season he missed the back injury, but then when he came back, he was ready to go. Yeah. And honestly, right now, this is his chance, really. Of course, he's not better than Jokic, but he is ready for this moment, really, in the playoffs to put up the stats, to be the leader on offense if he needs to be. Defensively, it's whatever. But offensively, he can do whatever he really wants. I mean, the 6'10 frame playing in the small forward position, this guy's he's going to be almost kind of unstoppable. Mikal Bridges, that matchup is going to be great to watch. It's going to be very, very fun. Coming out of the same draft class, they're very familiar with each other. Michael Porter Jr. the players themselves that were drafted around him said he's the best player in this draft. So he has a moment right now to prove to them. That's the scariest part, really, is like, how do you stop him? I don't think you really can offensively. Maybe you can double him, but then what do you do with Jokic? I don't feel like you can double any of these guys. You got to stay home. But what's nice is DA's presence against Jokic, because he can actually put up a fight like he can. Jokic gave him his props. I think you mentioned it earlier, Flex, and it's true because he can put up a really good game. So I'm not too worried about him showing up, because when Anthony Davis was in there for the Lakers, he showed up big time. And it's going to be a fight, dude, for DA. It's not like he's going to have stellar games against him, because it is the playoffs, so it's going to be twice as hard. But just doing the best you can with Michael Porter and the guys around him who are just really filling in for Jamal Murray, who's injured, that's going to be tough too. I mean, because Jokic is going to hit whoever he wants at any time given, because no matter what you do defensively against this guy, he's going to find somebody. So I think offensively, we can outshoot these guys. Definitely our bench is better. We have a better supporting cast. So, I mean, if you're going to worry about Michael Porter, that's fine, but I wouldn't go too much into it, because I think he's still going to get his 25, 26 points every night against the Suns team.
But see, I think that's the key to success for the Suns, is trying to neutralize that down to 15 points a game. If they could
18,
get him,
18, 19,
exactly. Get him off of his game. Because Matthew, you're right. And shout out to Matthew. Just had a piece drop on Bright Side of the Sun talking about Michael Porter Jr. and his career and his journey to this moment. And he's ready for it. We've seen that in the first series. We saw that a little bit in the bubble last year, and the way that he stepped up in the absence of Jamal Murray this year. But he's somebody who I feel like you have to key on him. You have to try to take him out of his game, because he will take the shots. You take a look at this roster, and you're going to have to ask yourself, okay, well, where are the shots going to come from, seen as, offensively, they're not the same team that they would be if they had Jamal Murray in the game. And you look at the previous series, how they played. You had, from an average standpoint, or let's see, 3 points. I'm trying to find the exact stats here on who shot the ball the most. So, most shots was obviously Nikola Jokic. Okay, 142 shots he had in this last series. The last, right behind him was Michael Porter at 80. That's 62 less shots. Okay, behind him, Monty Morris coming off the bench, and that's going to be a big key in the series too, which we'll get into here in a little bit. So Michael Porter will take his shots. To Matthew's point, he's going to try to get his points. I think you can double him because of the lack of, I wouldn't say talent, because they are a team that's playing in the Western Conference semifinals, but the talent of their backcourt. And I think that one of the beautiful things about this for the Suns is, Mikal Bridges doesn't have to go guard a guard. He gets to take on a small forward, or this is one of those series. And the same was pretty much true in the Lakers series. He did get switched onto Schroeder a bit, but I mean, for the most part, that's what the Nuggets are going to try to do, is run some high screen and rolls and try to create switches to get Michael Porter free from Mikal Bridges' grasp.
So, you see, that's a great point, John. Check this out, though. See, when I looked at the series, I went right to that. When I'm watching tape last night, I'm saying, okay, here's the beauty of the Suns-Denver matchup. When they're going to try to do that to us, and if we get a switch, I love DA in that switch. This is the side that we're not talking about, is what is Joker is not good on defense. He's just not good. So when we have the switch and we put him on an island, that's where I think the entire series shifts. I believe that if you saw Dame and CJ and Powell, I mean, they feasted on it. That was part of what they were doing, was let's get Joker on an island, let's make him play defense, let's put him in the high pick and roll, and let's attack the basket. With us, DA is much more serviceable on that end. So you're going to live with Joker doing what he does on offense, but you have to go at him on defense. And the same thing for Michael Porter. Michael Porter is he's a respectable defender, but he has his flaws. And I just think pound for pound, when we look at the series, offensively, the guys are going to do what they're going to do offensively. But I think collectively as a group, I don't even think it's close. Defensively, the Phoenix Suns have so many more weapons. I just think throwing 4 guys at Michael Porter Jr., that kid's young. That kid is young, man. He still has a lot to go. He's very talented. Listen, look at that game in Game 6. He had a fantastic first half. He hit 6 3-pointers in the first half and absolutely disappeared in the second half. So there's a little bit of that dynamic. So I think defensively there's some holes that we can attack, and that backcourt won't hold up against our guys. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and also Monty Morris, I mean, he's the one to look out for, but he went up 5% basically, or 4% 3-point percentage in the playoffs.
Yes.
But now that he's getting but the thing is, when you look at these stats, the last series against the Blazers,
ballooned.
They are, and it's tough to look at that. It's tough for the Blazers probably to be like, how much confidence can we get from this series going against the Suns? Because like we were talking about on offense, the weapons that we have just are they outnumber the Nuggets so much. You know, they outweigh them. And honestly, defensively, of course, we're a better defensive team. But offensively, it's like you have so much to worry about for the Suns. The Nuggets are like 1 star away from being really, really a real contender. Right. All right, they're that 1 star, maybe a Michael Porter Jr. really good season away from being a contender. But they need that other
Jamal
guy.
Murray healthy.
Well, if they have Jamal Murray healthy,
exactly. I know, but even if Jamal Murray, I know he started doing better towards the end of the season. He did a fantastic job of getting his jump shot back, getting his points to skyrocket because he had a rough start. But he came back and he was really rolling before he got injured. So he would have been a problem in the playoffs. Even then, it would have been a fight. But Suns would have probably had the edge. But I think the games would have went longer, maybe 7 games in the series. Right now, it's just looking like, the Suns can really take this a little bit quicker than 7 games.
Yeah. Well, and you look at a move that they made in an effort to try to, bring that other star here. And, shout out to Flash's nemesis in the chat. He says, yo, Flex, how does Aaron Gordon look in that offense? Because Aaron Gordon was an addition. You've watched a lot of the games. What are you seeing from him in that offense, and how is his performance gonna be effective in this series?
I tell you what, the problem with Aaron Gordon is that he's the epitome of what we used to call. I'm not talking about this as far as size. I'm just using this phrase. The epitome of what I used to call a tweener back in the day. All right. And a guy that just doesn't fit, right? He's either too big for the small forward spot or too small for the power forward spot. In this particular offense, it seems like they want him to be a 3, but he still wants to be a 2. And so him and Michael Porter are fighting over shots in a sense. And I just don't see the balance. There's times I watch the game and he's 10 minutes, he just disappears. You don't even know he's out there. Okay. Yep. And when I look at that, I'm saying, okay, that's not a guy I'm going to worry about. That's a guy that's just going to float around. He'll get you occasional dunk or transition play. I worry more about Aaron Gordon on the defensive side. He's really tough on the glass. He's gonna try to at least contest a lot of shots. And I think that's what he brings to this team. But I personally think the Suns are going to dare Aaron Gordon to win this game. I mean, to win this series. That's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to say, we're going to take care of Joker and we're going to take care of Porter. And Aaron Gordon have at it, brother. Let's go. Let's see if you can take over a series. I don't think he can.
Matthew, do you think that Jay Crowder has an opportunity to live rent-free in Aaron Gordon's head in this series after doing what he did to the Lakers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to knock on Aaron Gordon, but when he wore number 50 because of the dunk contest thing, like, come on. If you were to join the Suns and did that, I'm like, dude, that is just ridiculous. Maybe there's something else more behind it. I mean, I understand the frustration with him with that, but that's kind of weird. I think he's easy to get into his head, but honestly, when he went to the Nuggets, it was kind of like when the Suns, we talked about this a lot with Aaron Gordon. We're like, we kind of wanted him, but he's kind of like the Kelly Oubre, right? Where he might try to do too much with the ball, and he cannot do that for the Nuggets team. He has to be a guy he's not DeAndre in size, but a guy you don't really drop a play for. That's the way he is. That's the way he is on the court. that's where he succeeds. ISO, I don't know, his percentage from 3-point, of course, this last series was great. He's always been a consistent 3-point shooter, but there's just so much that he wants to do on the court, but he just doesn't have the tools to do it. So if we want him to do that ISO game against Jay Crowder, even Cam Johnson, go ahead, go for it, man, because honestly, that's what you want to see, and that's what he's going to take away from the Nuggets team, is him being a little selfish out there. But I think that Michael Porter Jr. wasn't really fazed too much by him being added to this team, which is great for him. So I would rather them focus more on Aaron Gordon, getting him involved. That way, the Suns can go up maybe 10 or 15 points while he's trying to figure things out on offense.
Right.
And again, we talk about trying to negate the effectiveness of Jokic, which is going to be damn near impossible. The guy's an MVP. So you can focus more on Porter. But I like the matchup of Crowder on Aaron Gordon. I just think that he's physical. He's, he plays bigger than his size. And I think that, as Flex said, he's a tweener. He doesn't know what he wants to be on offense. And on defense, again, he has that size. He can create those rebounds, create those second chance points, which is something that it's funny watching playoff basketball again, because there's one thing I yell at the TV more than anything. It's get the board, like my wife.
Right. Grab the rebound. Right.
The rebound.
No more second chance points. Right.
Just, it's one thing like watching a regular season game, but in the playoffs, like it's so vital to not allow those second chance points. And I've refound myself. It's something I used to always yell, especially in those 7 seconds or less game or that era, because that team couldn't rebound for shit. It had to go in, But go for it.
No. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I like the Aaron Gordon matchup. I'm gonna bring up their lineup, but real quick, I just want to remind everybody:
the Suns Jam Session podcast is brought to you by Just Sports. Enter the code SUNSJAM at checkout for any of your online orders and receive 15% off of your purchase. That's right. Let them know that the Suns Jam Session guy sent you. Again, that is promo code SUNSJAM when checking out at shopjustsports.com.
I love you, John. You're so stupid. So funny.
Sorry. For those of you who are watching, you'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
But thank you to Just Sports.
Sorry, first time I saw that flex.
Yeah, I know. I like to throw random things up at Matthew in the podcast. So you look at the matchup, and across the board, I'm scared in how confident I am, because I think that we match up very well against this team. You go back in time and you look at the beginning of the season. We played the Denver Nuggets 3 times, all in the month of January, and we lost, 2 of them. We won the one on January 1st, 106-103, but then we lost one in overtime, 130-126. That technically shouldn't have gone to overtime because Jamal Murray traveled and then hit a 3 that sent it to overtime. And then we lost a double overtime game without Devin Booker. But none of those guys are left on the Nuggets. I mean, it's pretty much just Jokic. So you can take what those starting lineups were and trash them. You look at who they currently have out there. Campazzo versus Paul, advantage Paul. Rivers versus Booker, advantage Booker. Porter versus Bridges, that's kind of a push. Gordon versus Crowder, I feel like that's kind of a push. Jokic versus Ayton, it goes Jokic. But then you look at our bench, and there was something that you were talking about last week, Flex, that I wanted to bring up. You were talking about how Dario Saric against the Lakers could have, he could have changed it, and you owe me a lunch for that, and I appreciate it.
Your lunch. Yeah, I was dead wrong. Hey,
that includes me too, Flex.
I'm a man. Both of y'all. I buy y'all double lunches because I was wrong on that one, and I'm not afraid to say it.
So pretty much what happened was Flex was on the Believe Suns podcast. They were going live, and I was living in the chat for once, not being in front of the camera. It was really fun. But you went on this little Dario, and I love Dario. I am a huge Dario supporter, and I said it the other night with the Suns solar panel guys. I think they, I got a lot of eye rolls, but I really think that Dario Saric can be effective in this series against this team. I think that fundamentals is where he lives. He has a hard time with size. When you have JaMychal Green as your backup center, Dario Saric can be effective. Yes. What do you think?
Now, listen, I'm a big, you guys are going to know over the years we keep working together. I'm a big boxing guy. Love boxing. And I'll keep going back to my boxing phrases. Styles make fights. Sometimes you have 2 guys and the styles make the fights, and that's where it becomes. And then that guy fights somebody else and gets knocked out in 30 seconds. So what I'm trying to say here is the style of the Lakers series made the fight, and Dario wasn't that type of style of player. And that showed to be showed to be facts, and you guys were absolutely right. Now this is a new team. This is a new series, entirely different style of basketball, more suitable to Dario, more suitable of a pace, less bigs. Dario's problem is you don't worry so much about him on offense. He's going to have his times, but his IQ is very good on offense. It's defensively. You cannot put him on the court when he's got to face Anthony Davis and LeBron James. He's just too flat-footed. Yeah. He's too slow. He doesn't move lateral. This is a better matchup for him. And I do believe that you'll see Dario Saric in the series, and that's the right way to go. That's how you coach a championship team. You coach what you got, and you put them in the game when they're more useful and the style is more beneficial to them. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a little Dario in this series. And I haven't given up on Dario, man. I think Dario's going to help us win. I said Torrey's going to help us win a game. Before it's all said and done, Dario's going to help us win a game.
Matthew, we getting some smoke breaks in this upcoming series?
Yeah, I hope so. And the one thing I noticed, I did watch a couple of games from last series, and I noticed like the Blazers would go up 15, 18 points in those games. And, of course, they don't play defense, so it's hard to maintain those. What did the Suns do the last 2 games versus the Lakers? They maintained that lead, not to get to single digits ever. Like they just made sure to keep their I always say this, their foot on their neck, and I have the hardest time saying that for some reason, but they did. And those are the times when we're up by 15. Before, you couldn't put them in, I think, against the Lakers. Of course, we just talked about that, but these games, he can be that connector. He's not going to be hiding in the trees as much. He's going to be someone that can like simplify the offense out there. Defensively flex, you're right, man. You can't go up against Anthony Davis, LeBron James. He's just a doormat in that situation. He'll have a better opportunity. He had such a good beginning of the season, and I've always said Monty loves this guy. He's going to be playing not huge minutes, I don't think, but he'll be back in the rotation, right? Just when we have those leads, because he's not going to make mistakes, I don't think, against this team, because he would make those mistakes against the Lakers where he just throw the ball away. He's just a little too slow, unathletic to really get the ball anywhere. This series, he'll have an opportunity to do that, and he can be that connector, I think. And it might not be every game, but he'll get some minutes, I think.
Well, and think about the advantage that this Suns team has and why so many of us who've been covering this team all season long are excited for how open the playoffs are now. It's because of our depth. We can play in so many different ways. We can come at you with, if we need to play fast pace, we can play fast pace. If we need to slow the game down, we can do that. We can impart Dario Saric to play some technical sound basketball and be that connector and be that distributor when we need to. We have that second team unit that is just shown time and again that not only can they take a lead, they can enhance a lead. And as you mentioned, Matthew, Devin Booker kind of set the table in this series. He averaged like 12.8 points per game in the first quarter. And then the rest of the team just kind of took it from there. And again, as I pull up the matchup, they're primary. They're 4 who come off the bench are Monty Morris, who will be a problem. We need to figure out a way to defend him. JaMychal Green, Paul Millsap, and Marcus Howard. We have Cam Payne, Cam Johnson, Torrey Craig, Dario Saric, and we could dip even further into that if we need to. And I think that, again, we look at the top line, the starters for this team, we have an advantage. You look at the bench, we have an advantage. Like you said, against the Blazers don't have that depth. So when they would bring their starters out of the game, they allowed the Denver Nuggets to get back in the game. And just seeing this, again, it's like I'm scared to be confident because I'm confident.
Yeah, you're scared to be confident, but then you see that name Cam Payne right there. It's beautiful. That's the X factor in a lot of these series that are coming up for the Suns, especially against the Lakers, man. He's the one guy that trumps all of the other guys on the Nuggets, right? On the bench. He's the one that's really going to lead that second unit. He's even helped with the starting lineup too when he comes in. So I'm really looking for him to continue that. He's that one guy where it's like, yeah, I am a little frightened, but then you see his confidence on the floor. I feel a little bit more at ease. When we went to the game Wednesday, I was like, oh, here comes Cam Payne. He's coming in, man. I cannot wait to see this dude just continue to like push the, oh my God, I'm not even going to say it.
Push the pace.
Hey, you know what I like about Cam Payne?
Every time.
I'm going to tell you what I like about Cam Payne. There were certain instances in that series, if you go back and look at it, man, this guy was going right at LeBron. Numerous times he got switches. He was going right at LeBron. This kid's fearless. I call him Champagne. That's my nickname.
I love it. I love it.
I like that, man.
I call him Champagne. I said, you keep playing like that, that's what we're gonna be popping, Champagne. So
yes, sir.
That's the thing. Here's the thing, guys, about the bench. And this is just another thought I got. I look at this series and I say, okay, if the Suns play well, they'll win. If the Suns don't play well, they can still win. That's where I think it shifts. Denver has to play well to win.
Yeah.
They don't play well, they're toast. And that's I think is a big important factor in this. They need to get what we just said. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give them the LeBron AD treatment that I gave them on my previous show. When we went into the Lakers series, I kept saying, guys, don't get fixated on LeBron and Anthony Davis. Give them 30 each. And then find out where the X40, 45 is coming from. Okay, so in this series, it's a little bit of a lower dip. So I'm going to say, okay, I'll give Joker his 30. I'll give Porter his 25. And I still don't know where they're getting the rest of those points. You'll get 10 here, 15 here, maybe Aaron Gordon, Monty Morris every now and then will have a game. But I just don't think they can play with us in the mud. I just don't think they can. And if they try anything else, they're in for a long series. I don't think this series is going to be as close as people think. I know I'm a little overconfident, maybe. I know people may say, Flex, you're a little overconfident. But
that's a good thing, man.
I mean, are we going to wait for predictions, right?
Yeah, we'll wait to the end for a prediction. We'll wait for
even though we just predicted, I think 5 different times each.
Yeah, but we haven't officially put our official
not
predictions
official,
in yet.
right.
We'll wait to the end. You know, I do want to talk about Nikola Jokic. I want to bring up this stat right here. So you look at his regular season, 26.4 points per game, 8.3 assists per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, an offensive rating of 130, a defensive rating of 109, and 38.8 from downtown. The first round, those numbers are a little bit inflated. His points per game jumped from 26 to 33, but his assists were cut in half because, again, that's how the Portland Trailblazers were essentially playing him. His offensive rating was 121. His offensive rating was 127. His defensive rating was 121. You look at the Suns earlier in the season, I think that is the one guy who you can look at his numbers and go, okay, how did he play against the Suns? Because, you know, this is going to be the same starting five that the Suns are going to throw out there against the Nuggets. It wasn't the same starting five for him, but he averaged 25.7 points per game, 8.3 assists per game, 13.7 rebounds per game, $119 on his offensive rating, 108 on his defensive rating, and 50% from downtown. So my question to you, gentlemen, how do you stop the Joker? Because I feel the only way. And again, I hate this. I hate being a confident Suns fan. It's not an area I normally live in. I haven't lived here pretty much my entire life. You're always pessimistic. But how do the Suns? How are we sitting here 2 weeks from now talking like, damn, I can't believe Denver beat us outside of injury? Knock on wood. It's Jokic has to go absolutely bonkers in the series. So how, if at all, do you think you guys can stop Nikola Jokic or at least try to neutralize him a little bit to not get his teammates involved? Because if, like you said, Flex, when you give them the AD and the LeBron James treatment, you were daring them to let the role players play well. And we knew coming into this that the Lakers role players weren't that great. The same could be said about the Denver Nuggets. Now we know that they played against a team that didn't have much defense, but they still stepped up and showed out in that series. They have confidence too coming into this. Yep. They're a team that is going to be confident in their ability to shoot the three. How do we neutralize Jokic? Punch him in the balls? Like, I don't know.
I go.
Go ahead, man.
Listen. Here's my thing. And I'm by nature, I'm a coach, right? So I'm not a coach of NBA basketball, but I'm a coach. And I've played, I've coached in many situations where there are uber talented guys that you just, you're like, wow, what do I do, right? What I'm going to say is this: you don't ever double him, ever, because he's the best. He's the best passer in the world at the big position, and he feasts on being able to look above his defender and find the open guy. So you don't do that. You don't ever double him. You try not to take his pump fakes, and you live with the result. That's it. I mean, I think it's that simple. Sometimes in basketball, and when I coach my kids, I always tell them, I say, guys, in its purest form, basketball is pretty simple, man. Don't overcomplicate this Joker thing. Man up with him. Put Ayton on him. Hope he stays out of foul trouble. Don't take the pump fakes. Don't put him at the free throw line. Make him hit his shots. But don't ever double him, because when you double him, you get backdoored, you get the open threes, you get everybody else involved. And in order for them to beat us, everyone else has to be involved. So I think you just play them straight up and you live with the results. That's how you beat them.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with everything you just said. And honestly, I think you hit on it earlier too in the podcast when you talked about just Aiden. Someone said Aiden's fouls. So I think Aiden really learned his lesson a lot. I think he fell down one game against Denver this year, right? Earlier, even though he played phenomenal, he's learned a lot, to stay out of foul trouble. It might happen once or twice this series, but that's a big thing. I think if you can have Aiden in this game or in this series, and he can play that 35 to 40 minutes a night, that's going to be huge. Of course, Jokic is going to get his stats, and honestly, his assists did dip a little bit, but I mean, he doesn't have like the shot makers around him when you have the Suns perimeter defense, right? I mean, you said don't double him. It's correct. Just stay on your dudes. Let Jokic try to figure things out. Let him try to draw the fouls. Let him try to do what he wants to do in the paint. Just keep your hands up, because last series, I mean, LeBron and AD, when they go to the rim, I know AD had that one game into the free throw line, I think 100 times, but against LeBron, they played fantastic defense, keeping the hands up. And LeBron, just like Jokic, can't jump over a nickel right now. I mean, he was struggling to get dunks in that, I think it was the second game he was trying to show off against the Suns. He can't jump. He couldn't jump in the last series. So you're looking at the same kind of thing. A guy that's a facilitator that can't really jump, but will try to draw the foul. They did such a great job at just keeping their hands up. And even when they had a chance at the block, keeping their hand on the ball. And that's the big thing, man. If Aiden can just stay in these games, it's going to help continue to push those leads to the 20s, to the 30s. I'm not saying they're going to blow them out every game, but once the Suns get to those leads, dude, they can hang with them, and they can hang with those leads, not hang with the Nuggets. They can hang with those leads and keep it up all game. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Great point.
Blaze Megatron says in the chat, one of our elite champs, he says Nurkic had trouble with fouls and staying on the floor. DA can't do the same, and that's the key to me. The key, and you both hit on it, but I'll give my 2 cents as well. The key to stopping Jokic is keeping DA in the game. I think everybody's hit on it. Shaner Mang. I probably said that wrong, but he said, let him score, not pass. Body him, wear him down, make him use his feet. All of these things are going to negate who he is, and we can't play straight up on him. And DeAndre Ayton has done a great job this year playing straight up on him. This right here from Suns Reddit, Nikola Jokic, when guarded by DeAndre Ayton this season, is 13 for 34, which is 38%, 3 turnovers, blocked twice, 0 free throw attempts. Okay? When he's guarded by the other Suns, he's 18 for 27, which is 67%, and 11 for 15 from the free throw line. I'm going to leave that up there for a minute for those of you who are watching, so you can read that and just really kind of digest that. One thing that DeAndre Ayton does extremely well, and when he does actually do it, we actually are a little surprised, is he stays home on the pump fakes. Yes. He got pump faked. He got a 1 pump fake foul in that entire series against the Lakers, and everybody's like, "Oh, damn, he fell for one." It's like, that's what he does well.
That was
right.
That was weird.
You remember that because he doesn't do it. As long as he stands there with his hand up, and if Joker has to shoot over him every time, go for it. But keep your hands up. Don't come out and towards him because he's going to do the drag through and try to create that false contact. I said it on the last podcast. I'll say it again. Like, get ready to be annoyed by the Joker, because he is a center who knows how to foul bait. He knows how to play the refs. He cries a lot. We're gonna the memes will start. The Suns fans will bring that to light. That they're frustrated with how Jokic is constantly going at the refs. I mean, he's got that. A lot of the European guys do. Luka does it all the time too. Yeah. After every play, even when they make it, they're turning to the refs the first, and they wear them down. And what that does is they'll get 2 or 3 extra calls a game. Yeah. That are going to frustrate you. And as long as it's not on DeAndre Ayton, somebody just said in the chat, bring sticks in. Level 307 says, can Jalen Smith have a go at Jokic? Bring him in. Let him get a couple fouls on him if you need to. But
he'll get minutes later in the game for sure.
Yeah, I hope so.
You know what's another thing too is because Jokic's style of play, I don't ever want this to happen. But I could live with Frank on him for 5 minutes.
I could too.
You know what I mean? I could live with Dario a couple times switching over to him. So there's options. Jokic is not the athletic type. He's not going to blow by you. He's not going to out jump. He doesn't jump over a tic tac. So, you give him, you play him on the perimeter. You take away his passing lanes. And like you said, you stay away from the pump fakes. And the good thing is DeAndre has done a good job of doing it already. So you're listen. I can't say enough about DeAndre Ayton, man. The kid is playing fantastic basketball. So I just love everything about what he's doing right now, and I think he's growing up right before our eyes. And I think DeAndre knows this is a series where he's going to be probably the X factor, which I think he was in the Lakers series. I think he won, without DeAndre, people go crazy and they say, oh man, Chris Paul and Book. And I love Book. I love Chris Paul, but we don't win that series without DeAndre. And there's no chance in hell. You know what? I have a snowball shot in hell of winning that series without DA. And, and he went through every type of style that you could send at him. So I'm excited for DA in this series. This could be a coming out party for Mr. Ayton.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, all these players are ready for the situation. I think they're prepared. And not to say like beating the Lakers is it, but between those two teams, whoever won that series is probably going to go to the finals. I think a lot of people said that. We said it on the pod here. So to get over that, they're not going to focus on this team like they're lesser than the Lakers. They're going to prepare against them like they are the Lakers, like they're even better than the Lakers. They're going to out-prepare them. They're going to focus on where they can attack them, of course, at their weaknesses. But DeAndre Ayton's impact is huge. And honestly, we just talked about it, but keeping his hands up, but also he can keep some distance too on Jokic, right? I mean, he doesn't have to be up all over him. He's very quick on the switches and stuff, so he can keep a little bit of distance and make it hard on him for passing. Right. So I'm looking at that too.
Yeah, I think that, Jokic can hit those mid-range jump shots, but you can give him those mid-range jump shots and, you know what, stay 3-4 feet away from him. Don't get yourself in foul trouble and turn around and get ready for the rebound. If he's going to miss it, get ready for the rebound. And if he makes it, like you said, he's going to get his points. The key, I think, really is try not to be within, within 5 or be down 5 with 3 minutes left to go, because then you'll get Joker to death. We've seen that. Fouls, he'll get the fouls, and then they just run everything through him. If you're down, if you're up, then it's just kind of continually bring it on. And to your point, Matthew, I think that having Chris Paul on this team keeps this team locked in and focused. Every time they're probably getting a little high. Yeah, this is great, man. We just beat the Lakers. Chris Paul's like, dude, we got a long way to go, man. Like, get me to my first NBA Finals. Right. And so, although we might take Denver a little lightly, is kind of the vibe I'm getting from everybody. Know that the Suns aren't, and I think that's very valuable.
No, they're not. They're not. You know what's another thing, guys, that I think is going to play right to the Suns' hands is, and this is probably one of the most underrated things about the Lakers series. Is that the Phoenix Suns psyche right now is we can actually just play basketball. Like, we can just play basketball. This is normal basketball. Yep. You're not playing against LeBron, Anthony Davis, the referees, the National Basketball Association, media, TV ratings. You're not playing against any of that. You're able to now just go play basketball. And that is something that the Suns weathered that I think was more crucial than the actual players they went against in that Lakers series. You were playing the Zebras too. You were playing the Zebras and the machine that is the NBA. You think the national I have a friend that works at the league office in Manhattan. So we talk about a lot of the politics of this stuff. And, I remember one of the conversations we were having before Game 6. He said, Flex, listen, I believe the Suns are the better team. He goes, but I also believe that the NBA doesn't want LeBron out in the first round. Yeah. And it's not a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that there is. I'm just saying that the NBA is a machine. They are a business. And it's not good for business to have your number one quantity out, your prize commodity out in the first round. The Suns already took care of that. So now the idea that, we're not going to see Joker get 25 free throws at the line like Anthony Davis was, I don't think so. They'll have those games where he'll get 13, 14, but I just think that they weathered so much in that Lakers series that I think they're going to go into this series free-minded, play Suns basketball. And then the last point I'll say is the Denver Nuggets, because they played Portland, they were lucky. And I say that because I don't think Denver's a team that can play from behind well. They're front runners. They get ahead of you, then they're going to play their pace. That's why they play one of the slowest paces in the league. They get ahead of you, and then they walk the ball up, and they get very methodical, and they go through Joker. But when they're playing from behind, they become a little more frantic. Now, Portland's so bad defensively that they let Denver back in some of these games that shouldn't have even gotten back into. That's the difference with this Phoenix Suns basketball team. They play defense.
Yeah,
they go ahead.
Some of the collapsing that Portland was doing was just abominable.
Makes no sense,
I was like, how's this a play? And again, the Portland was such a darling of some of the sports writers. They're like, oh, no, Dame time, all this. Is like, dude, you got to play defense, man. Like,
got to play
defense. That's why this Suns team is – I'm so excited for them going into the series because I know we can continue to play defense. And again, these matchups look fantastic. One thing you can't play defense against, though, and I'll bring it up just because it's a factor in the series, and I want to get both of your thoughts on it. The altitude. I mean, you are playing in Denver. That is going to be a factor. I don't know how much of a factor, but it is one of the reasons why it's an advantage to have home court. As Monty Williams talked about at the end of the bubble, it's like, hey, we might not make it in tonight, prior to the Nets losing in the bubble. He's like, we might not make it in tonight, but now we can all see why it's important to be in control of our own destiny. And one of those factors is if this goes to a game 7, it's here at home. What do you guys think about the altitude and how it will affect this series, if at all? Matthew.
Matthew, go ahead, Matthew. Sure.
All right. Well, scientifically, I mean, it's proven if you leave the altitude and then you come back, you have to readjust. Just kidding. That's not even one thing. I think I just made that up.
No. Go ahead. I'm going to jump on something you just said. Go ahead.
Yeah, but honestly, I think it is a factor, but just who cares? We hear this all the time. We play Denver, and I think it might be a factor, of course, for them. But for the way the Suns play, I mean, they don't even push the pace too much. They can slow things down if they want. But these guys are just ready to go, man. So I'm not too worried about it. What about you, Flex?
I'm going to tell you, this is what I believe. So I think the altitude plays a lot in the regular season, and here's why. You get a team that flies in on a back-to-back. They go to Denver. They got one day to adjust to everything. They played, game's over. That's where it becomes an issue. Where the playoffs are a good dynamic is where you're getting a team. You're going to be there for 3 days if you play a 2-game series, 4 days, right? So I believe it plays a bigger factor in the regular season because of travel and having to adjust. But I think in a playoff series, I think you adjusted that pretty quickly because you're gonna be there. You're not leaving the next night. You're spending the night. You're gonna adapt to everything. And so I think again, in my personal opinion, is something that is more favored in the regular season. I think in the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be that much of a factor. But it is altitude, so they'll have to adjust for a couple minutes, maybe that first quarter of the first game, and then after that, that's out the window.
Yeah, and if the Suns are winning at home, it's not going to be a big deal, right? I mean, if they split the game, win the next game because they're too tired or whatever, then that's series.
So Brian asked in the chat, Flex, do the Suns get more respect from the refs in this series now that they beat the Lakers?
Absolutely, yes. And here's why. It's about respect in the NBA. It's about they don't call. We know this. We've been watching basketball all our lives. They call. They look at the back of the jersey, right? So now you got Chris Paul. Right? Chris Paul's an NBA vet, 16-time, multiple All-Star, future Hall of Famer. Yes, Chris Paul's going to get more calls. Devin Booker just had a legendary moment. Yes, Devin's going to get more calls now. So, yes, I think they get, the referees are very fickle. But I think that, when the playoffs come, they shorten the rotations. You get better referees. And I think that once you slay that dragon, which was the Los Angeles Lakers, I think now you start to look at the Phoenix Suns and you say, okay, this team is doing what they got to do. I think they're going to get some more respect from the refs going forward. The only series I'm worried about where the refs might get a little bit crazy is that team out down the road from me. They played in Brooklyn Nets. That's a whole different
I was gonna ask you too at the end of the pod what you predicted for the East. Who would come out of the East?
We can go at it. Of course.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited for that series. Like the game's already started. Like once we're done here, I'm gonna watch the Bucks and the Nets. Like I'm so excited for that series. Let's ask that. All right, who wins that series, and does the winner of that series end up in the NBA Finals, Flex?
Yes, yes, and yes. So I'm looking at this series. I was in South Jersey yesterday, celebrating my son's birthday, and we had a bunch of family over. And if you can imagine a family with a gathering with Flex and the family, it's like a mega podcast, man, because everybody in the family has their opinion, and they're all ball players or former players, right? So we went into about a 2-hour discussion on the Brooklyn Milwaukee thing, and here's what I said: I think it's going 7. I think Milwaukee matches up extremely well with Brooklyn.
Yes, they do.
I think what you got to do is you got to say, okay, Drew Holiday is going to match up with Kyrie. We're going to throw Middleton on Harden. We're going to throw Giannis on KD. And we're going to see which one of those matchups who breaks, who breaks, like who dominates their matchup. Nets have no answer for Giannis. So I'm going to tell you what, man, they don't play defense. And if the Bucks play their game, I think the Bucks can win this series, but I think they have to win one of these two in Brooklyn. So
of course,
tonight, game 1 and game 2, if they can steal one, it's going to be very.
Is Jeff
very
Green
impressive.
Still in a walking boot, or is he playing?
No, he's playing.
Okay.
Well, at least that's what I last heard was that.
Yeah, we'll see once we go check.
We'll see, right?
All right. So Matthew, who wins that series?
I think Brooklyn does, but it's really tough, man. And honestly, I picked Philadelphia, but now with Embiid being out, they're out. So, yeah, whoever wins the series is going to the finals. But the thing with Brooklyn, it's the mental thing, right? It's these guys. It's been a fun season for them, right? You can just play whenever the hell you want. Just come in and come out. You can sip on Slurpees or whatever on the sideline. But now they have to show up. So mentally, when these games get tough, because they're going to, that Bucks defense is really, really effing good. How are they going to respond to that, dude? It's cliche, but it's true. It's how are they going to respond in the last 5 minutes of these games, dude? Because when they want the ball to make those shots, that's going to be a problem. I could see it going either way. I'm going by who I would be most surprised moving on, and it's going to be the Bucks. I would be really surprised if they moved on just because of Brooklyn and those three guys, but either one has a chance, but I'm picking Brooklyn, and it kind of sucks because I would rather play the Bucks in the finals.
Well, that's what Blaze Megatron says in the chat. He says, "Man, I want the Bucks to win. The Bucks, we can beat the Nets. It's not so confident." I do think the Bucks win this series. I really do. I think that they're going to put pressure on Brooklyn. Somebody's going to get dinged up a little bit. I don't know who. I don't know on what side. But as we saw in the last series, injuries are going to play a part. Joel Embiid's out for Philly. We've had a hampered CP3. Sucks. Anthony Davis was hurt. It sucks, but it's part of basketball. And when you're playing so intensely, one of those guys gets dinged. One of those guys, just tweaks an ankle, is out for a couple games. The Bucks can win. So
yeah, I agree.
But before we get to the predictions for the Nuggets and the Suns, do you have any taglines? Do you guys have any taglines for this series? Because we had the Beat LA chant going for the last 6 games. It's now on to the Nugs. What do we chant now?
Win.
Win. I like it.
Win.
Just win, man. hey, just do it. How about that? Just do it.
I feel like that one's taken.
All right, John, what do you got? I know you have a few.
Well, smoke the Nugs is one.
Smoke the Nugs.
I get it. Smoke the Nugs. I came up with slug the Nugs.
I like that.
That's what I'm hashtagging. It's hashtag slug the Nugs. Punch them in the face, metaphorically, with the basketball going through the hoop. But on that note, series predictions. Flex, you're the guest on the show, so we will start with you. Shock the world. What are the Suns going to do? What's your final prediction right here in the Suns Jam Session podcast? What's your prediction for this series? One game.
All right. Okay. So I just want to frame this real quick. Okay. The Suns will win the first 2 in Phoenix and go up 2-0. They will still win in Denver and come back game 5 and wrap it up in Phoenix. But if that doesn't happen, it goes no longer than 6.
Okay, so
Phoenix,
all right.
So I think Suns in 5.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, Suns in 6 if they can.
I
know that's
that.
2 predictions, but
so
worst
Suns,
case 6.
Suns
Awesome.
in 5.5.
there you go. Let's meet in the middle. Suns in 5.5.
All right, what you got, Matthew?
Oh, just really quick, back to the Lakers series. Actually, I predicted it backwards. I predicted them win 3 in a row, lose, and then or lose, and then win. It went actually opposite of that, so that was kind of cool. So I'm actually going to predict they split the first 2 games, and then the Suns win the next 3. So I'm going to pick the Suns in 5. I hate doing this. And I picked the Suns last series, but that's such a different series. I'm just really nervous right now, dude. I don't want to say anything because everyone kept asking me like, "Oh, LeBron's done. It's like, dude, the game's not over. The game hasn't even started. I'm not saying anything against LeBron, so I have a hard time with this stuff. But I say Suns in 5.
Wow, I think this is going to be a clean sweep for Suns in 5 because that's really how I'm feeling in this series.
Let's go.
I think that again, CP3 being healthy, him getting that extra rest is going to be paramount. I think that we match up very well against this team. We can play defense. They're a team that I wasn't scared of in the regular season. And that's with them with Jamal Murray. And knowing that they don't have Jamal Murray is absolutely huge because now we have a clear advantage. Austin Rivers or Devin Booker, ladies and gentlemen. Just think about that. Like, absorb that into your soul. Like really, like Campazzo. Now, Campazzo is going to be another one of those guys who we're going to want to put through a wall by the end of the series because he's an annoying little motherfucker. But so CP3. Yeah. And he can annoy him right back. I mean, you saw how Damian Lillard was getting frustrated with Campazzo during the last series. CP3 will push right back at him, man. So I really think we drop game 3 in Denver. I think, that'll be the altitude adjustment game where we come in. We might get, a little boat raced at the beginning of the game because we're just not used to the friendly confines of whatever the fuck arena that they play at.
Pepsi Center.
Pepsi Center. There you go. So I think that, and then as you mentioned, Flex, they play well from ahead. I think that's a game where we go down 15 in like the second quarter and we're fighting and clawing and trying to get our sea legs under us. And then we come out the next game and we just, we end everything here in Phoenix. So that being said, Flex, when are you coming out to Phoenix, man? The Suns are in this playoff run. We got to get you out here, man. We got to get a GoFundMe. Game 5, you going to be out here?
I'm game 5, yeah. The anticipation is I hopefully get there on the 14th, enjoy the game on the 15th, fly back on the 16th. That's the game plan.
All right,
and that's why we're doing it in 5. That's why we're doing it in 5.
I can't wait.
My only problem is I know how this is going to work. I'm going out for 5, so that means the Suns are going to sweep them. That's what's going to happen.
Well, then you have to join us for the finals.
No. Then you come out here. You come out here and you'll be here for game 1 because
that's it.
Because you're going to have Utah's going to lose and we'll have home court advantage there as well. So
hey, can I real quick before we go, guys, real quick. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a premonition I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this moment and I'm sitting here and I never do this, but I don't know why. And it just came into my head and I wrote it down. And I had this moment where I'm like, okay, Suns are going to win. They're going to beat Denver in 5. They're going to match up with Utah in the Western Conference Finals, and then they're going to play Brooklyn in the final. I mean, no, they're going to play Milwaukee in the finals. Don't hold me to it, but I think it's going to be Denver, Utah, Milwaukee, and I'll see you at the parade.
I love it. And it looks
I was actually what streets we're going to do the parade on. Like, how are they going to do that? But
downtown, baby, downtown. It looks like Cameron Carney says in the chat, apparently Harden just hurt his hamstring. And all I see on Twitter is Nets Daily just tweeted out, I'm still in shock and I don't expect good news. So
there we go. I said that yesterday. All they got to do is blow a tire.
5 minutes ago, man. I said
blow
it 5 minutes ago.
You said it 5 minutes ago, bro.
Yeah,
you did
man.
say that.
So we're relying on Kyrie and Kevin Durant, right?
Which is still fucking, your odds are pretty fucking good.
I know, but come on. It's beatable.
Prayers up for Harden. I hope he's okay.
Prayers up to Harden. Yeah,
prayers
up
for real.
Harden.
Like,
tough luck.
Yeah.
But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to wrap up this edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. Flex, can you tell everybody where they, if they're not following you, 1, they're wrong. We know that. And 2, tell them everywhere where they can find you.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. You can catch me on Flex from Jersey on Twitter, Flex from Jersey on IG, Coast to Coast Pod 1 with the Coast to Coast podcast. And you can check me out on KSRN Arizona, KSRNAZ.com. We do a couple shows a week. And then, as always, with John Bloom on the 98.7 Arizona Sports Show, post game every night for the playoffs and every home game in the regular season.
Yeah, I actually I got on that post game show finally the other night, driving home from Game 5. I got a call in. I met Bloomer. Matthew and I met Bloomer before the game. We've talked to him before, but we've never actually met him. Just like everybody.
Great guy, man. Great guy. That's my brother. I love him to death, man.
Fantastic. And he's wearing a pair of Jordans that I like to rock. So I'm 4-0 and wearing my Jordans this year, or in the playoffs. So I'm going to continue to wear those. And it is confirmed. Shams just tweeted Harden's out for the remainder of the game 1 due to right hamstring injury. So
here we go.
Unfortunate. So on that note, Matthew, they can follow you where?
At Matthew Lissy.
You can follow me at Darth Void. You can follow the show at Suns Jam on Instagram, Twitter, and the Phoenix Fans app. Let's go, baby. Let's get this series started. Starts Monday, 7 p.m. our time, 10 p.m. Flex's time back east. We know you'll be watching. We'll have you back on the pod. We appreciate you coming hanging out with us. To everybody who joined us live, make sure you subscribe, give us a thumbs up button. And if you're listening on the Bright Side of the Sun Podcast Network, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe wherever you get your pod. So on that note, I'm going to go watch this game. I'll see you guys next time we do a podcast or whatever. So Matthew, anything else?
All right. I won't go home and love your family.
All right. Take care. Thank you again, Flex.
Playing orange. Yep.